أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu and welcome to today's class. I hope and pray that everyone is doing very well. Let's have a look at our normal elongation. So just to remind you all again, mad is an Arabic word which means to lengthen or to prolong. There are three letters known as huruful mad in Arabic, and in English, they are known as letters of prolongation. So three letters known as huruful mad or letters of prolongation. Either of those two words you should remember. Okay, those three letters are alif, waw, and ya. Okay, those are the three letters that are known as huruful mad or letters of prolongation. Huruful mad cause prolonging of sounds when they come after certain strokes, and that's what we have been learning this week. Today we will look at ya mad. So like I said, you've had a look at alif mad, you've had a look at waw mad, and today we'll be looking at ya mad. Now, the first thing over here in this box, you can see that we have a kasra. A short stroke of kasra, as we should all know, is always one count. So the timing for any letter with a kasra on it is one count. Now the next box over here shows us what ya sakin looks like. So you can see that we have the letter ya with a sukoon on top of it, and this is known as ya sakin. Now, when the short stroke of kasra is followed by a ya sakin, as you can see in this box on the left, you can see that we have a letter with a kasra followed by a ya sakin. When that happens, that ya sakin is now known as a ya mad. Okay, so before it was known as ya sakin simply because it was on its own, but now because it's ya sakin but the letter before it carries a kasra, we now refer to that ya sakin as ya mad. And ya mad causes the sound to prolong for two counts. Okay, so wherever you see a ya mad, so for example, if you see a ya sakin and the letter before it carries a kasra, then that ya mad will cause our sound to prolong for two counts. So over here, I'd like you to note the difference. So you can see over here that, oops, one moment. Okay, so over here, note the difference. So over here we have ya sakin, and over here we have ya mad. Okay, so that's the difference. On its own, it's just known as ya sakin, but as soon as you have a ya sakin and the letter before it has a kasra, then that is now known as ya mad. And ya madda, ya madya causes the sound to prolong for two counts. That's really important because timing is essential. So these are a few examples of ya madda where it comes, and we are going to quickly practice how to correctly pronounce these. So in the first box over here, you can see we have a meme with a kasra. So meme with a kasra, as we know, any letter with a kasra is pronounced for one count. So we would pronounce this as mi, mi. Now next to it, we have the same letter meme with a kasra again, but straight after it, we have a ya sakin. And because it's a ya sakin and the letter before it carries a kasra, this is now a ya madda. Okay, ya mad. So this will now prolong our sound for one count to two counts now. So we will sound this as me, me. We are giving it double the time as we gave to this sound, me. So one more time, this is me. And this is me. Okay, next we have a scene with a kasra, and any letter with a kasra is pronounced for one count, so si, si. Now straight next to it in the next box, we have again seen with a kasra, but now the difference is that we have a ya sakin right next to it. And As we know, whenever we see a ya sakin and the letter before carries a kasra, this will now be known as a ya madda. Ya madda. So, and ya madda means that we prolong our sound for 2 counts. So this will be si, si. So one more time, this is si, and this is si. So that is the rule of ya madda. Wherever you see a ya sakin that comes straight after a letter carrying a kasra, then that is now a ya madda, and ya madda will stretch our sound for 2 counts. So that is the rule. I hope you've all understood that rule. Now, since we have now gone through all of the letters of prolongation, so all the huruful mad, I'm now going to quickly recap whatever we've learned this week on the huruful mad. Okay, so the first thing you learned was about alif mad. So you learned that alif mad is when the short stroke of fatha is followed by an alif. And you can see that this alif is blank. It doesn't have any stroke on it, okay? So a letter carrying a fatha followed by an alif mad, sorry, alif, a blank alif, that is known as alif mad. Next, we looked at Wahmad. Now, Wahmad is when the short stroke of dhamma is followed by a waw sakin. So wherever you see a letter carrying a dhamma and the letter after it is a waw sakin, then that will become a waw mad and our sound will prolong for 2 counts. And today we've looked at ya mad. So we've learnt that wherever you see a ya sakin that comes straight after a letter with a kasra on it, it is known as ya mad. So once more, when short stroke of kasra is followed by a ya sakin, that is known as ya mad. Okay, let's have a look at the timing. So again, alif mad is alif preceded by a consonant carrying the stroke of fatha, or in simple words, an alif mad is where you see an alif that comes straight after a letter carrying a fatha. For example, over here you can see blank alif that, and before it we have a letter carrying a fatha. This is now an alif mad, and we will pronounce this for 2 counts. So we will say this as ha. Next we have Wahmad. So Wahmad is waw sakin preceded by a consonant carrying a stroke of dhamma, or in other words, a Wahmad is where a waw sakin comes straight after a letter carrying a dhamma. As you can see over here, we have waw sakin, letter before carries a dhamma. And again, this as well will pronounce for 2 counts. Boo. And then finally we have ya mad, which is ya sakin preceded by a consonant carrying a stroke of kasra, or in other words, we have a ya sakin that comes straight after a letter carrying the stroke of kasra, as we can see over here. And this will also be pronounced for 2 counts. So those are the 3 types of normal elongation, or haruful mad, or letters of prolongation. Alif mad, waw mad, and ya mad is what we've learned this week. So please do make sure you keep revising this and ensure that whenever you see this come up in your recitation, you ensure that your timing is of 2 counts. Okay, so that was just a quick recap of what we've learned this today, and also last couple of days as well.